Here.
David Inskeep. Mark Hairston.
Present.
Carmen Lovato.
Here.
Frank Seaman.
Here.
Jonathan Jennings.
Here.
Josh Smith. Paul Pitt.
Here.
Okay, would I entertain a motion to excuse Josh and Kay tonight?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is done. The minutes, you have those before you, and I think electronically they were sent out also. Does anyone have any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, does anyone wish to make the motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. The new business for tonight is Mr. Bogle has submitted an application. He and Bob have been working on this. This is for 120 East Main Street, requesting parcel reconfiguration for 214 and 218 West Main Street, for the 218 West Main Street Park. Bob, I'd like you to explain what we're doing tonight and what Mr. Bogo wants and why he wants it.
All right. You all probably know a bit of the history, but I will rehash some of the history. NDS, utilizing RLF money, purchased the building and demolished it. When they demolished it, they realized that the two walls were actually integrated together. So NDS has proposals from a couple contractors to rebuild the exterior wall of Guido's. When the wall is rebuilt, in the end, this property will come to the city. City will take ownership of it as long as City Council approves all of the things that's taken place. It eventually, most likely, that's going to happen. But the city, at this point, would have responsibility for that wall. So it was determined it would be best if the city would agree to provide 1 extra foot to Guido's of that land, so they would have no ownership of that wall in the future. As the plating,
We would have no ownership.
we, the city, would have no ownership of that wall in the future. So as the plating commissioner, being the city engineer is the plating commissioner, I can sign plats for recording if they meet the zoning requirements. This was quite a bit different with ownership in the city and that sort of thing. So I felt it best to come to the planning commission, get permission to sign that piece of 1 foot strip from property line, front to rear property line. I'm not exactly sure if NDS is currently the owner of record of that property. I'm not sure if he will want to transfer it as NDS, that 1 foot of land as NDS, and just take care of it now, or if he will wait until the city agrees to take ownership of that and then do the transfer. But in the end, it still will come to me for signature.
The bottom line is we need to get started on the wall because we're heading into fall big time, and it's going to take a while to build that wall. The wall is necessary to protect Guido's other building with that. So we're trying to straighten out some of these particulars so that we can get on to the ultimate thing of developing the park for this area. But this tonight is strictly dealing with the 1 foot situation. And Bob Bob just needs the authorization from the planning commission, then he can go ahead and take care of this.
Right. Correct.
Any questions or
Yeah,
comments?
I just have a logistics question on it. So, has NDS, their idea for what they wanna do on the plot itself, they have the conceptual design for that, have they got the final design for that?
No.
Okay.
No.
So that when they do the final design, that 12 inches will not be part of what they're going to develop, that'll be the Guido's wall.
Correct.
Okay. That I wanted to make sure.
Right. And that, it is still, they are still intending to, the block that they use on the wall is, they're still intending to be able to paint a mural on it, as the renderings have been, since they've been showing us.
So part of the wall will be brick and part will be block.
Correct. If they're going to, yes, where the mural will be, would be a CMU, a smoother CMU concrete masonry unit, a block, a gray block. We used to call them cinder blocks, but they're not cinder blocks, they're concrete blocks. But yes, it'll be a smoother finish compared to the bricks.
With respect to the mural though, nothing that we approve said the mural has to be only there. That would be
Correct.
Guido's wall, and if Guido says we want to expand onto the brick and the block, they can do that.
In the future, they could, unless we signed an agreement with them that says they can or they cannot do that. The other day, we met and we talked about a lease agreement for them to have their outdoor patio and the awning overhanging what would eventually be city property. There would be possibly a yearly fee or a monthly fee that city council has to agree to.
Okay.
When you say a wall, is this wall going to be separate of the Guido's building, or they'll be?
Yeah, they'll be integral to each other. Right now, they're getting water in their basement because there's kind of, for lack of a better way to explain it, there's open blocks that the water's able to get into. And they did not anticipate this whole process taking as long as it did, or as long as it has. They felt they could take the wall down, and it wasn't that simple.
So is the problem with the water in the basement the length of time it's taking, or something with structural integrity?
The current block is not sealed. So when they removed the wall, Hummel Construction did pour a new foundation along the wall so they could then block it up while they had it opened up. But now they need to continue that and seal the wall up because rain's getting inside and then running down the block, getting in the basement.
Because it was and technically still is an interior wall.
Correct. Correct.
This seemed like a no-brainer when I read it, and then the devil's advocate came in.
Lawyers.
Why is this the city?
Right. We have the best hopes for this park. But in 30 years, if that kind of fizzles out and someone wants to put a commercial building back on that lot, under the existing code, they could not reattach to Guido's, correct? It'd have to be a standalone?
In the central business district, there is 0 setback, 0-foot setback.
Okay.
So in theory, if they had an agreement with the owner at the time of Guido's, they could buy that 1 foot
Attach.
back and attach them, correct?
Okay. Just want to make sure we weren't blocking ourselves into that's permanent green space, even though right now we want it to be.
Yeah.
So it would be possible to rebuild there in the future if someone wants to.
Correct,
Even
yes,
with the 1 foot,
yes,
because we're not dealing with the setback.
correct.
Okay, so why isn't NDS paying for this?
Well, they will be paying for it, but it's through the grant, the revolving loan fund grant that they've received for this project. So it's not coming out of the city's bank account, it's coming out of earmarked money for the city through RLF. revolving loan fund.
So what exactly are we, I guess maybe what are we being, we're just being asked to approve this wall.
We're being asked to approve the, we're being
Sorry.
no, I know it's why I wanted to kind of start over and explain. It's been an odd, very odd process because NDS is still the land owner.
It's moving the property line 12 inches. isn't it?
Exactly, it's moving, yes. But in the future, this anticipating will become the city property. So we're kind of approving, Planning Commission is approving giving away a potential 12 inches of land that they don't own yet, but they will one day, possibly. Again, NDS might go ahead and transfer this 1 foot right now to Guido's, and then in the future, the city would just take ownership of 1 foot less of land, and it would be cleaned up that way. But the ultimate goal is that the city doesn't share any maintenance responsibility for this wall in the future.
Any other questions or
Because
comments?
right now it sits on the property line.
Right. And then when they're going to build that wall, they're gonna add another course of brick and block. So that wall's potentially going to encroach onto what would be city property. Could be a couple inches, but, you know,
In
those,
addition to in addition to the 12?
no, without
Okay.
giving them the 12. If we give them the 12 and they build that wall, maybe the property line's 10 inches or 8 inches away, you know what I mean, something like that, but. Yeah.
So you need us to approve the, I guess you could say this extension, because you need to plot it versus sign
So,
off on it?
yes,
And
would,
then, because it doesn't meet zoning requirements.
Be-
as is.
because it's a transfer of land and it's city property, or will be city property, it's a I'll use the word non-conforming plat. It's irregular, and it doesn't necessarily meet the zoning code. So I felt it's best to bring the planning commission and let planning commission agree or to vet it out and say, yes, Bob, you have our permission to sign this plat. So there's always two signatures on a plat when somebody wants to consolidate parcels or split parcels.
How do we extend something that isn't ours to extend?
Well, again, if you don't often see these because majority of them are done that meet the zoning code. So for instance, if somebody wants to, it's not uncommon to have two parcels where somebody has a garage, they own both parcels, but the garage sits on a property line. They want to do something, I require them to consolidate into one parcel because that's a zoning code. You can't have an accessory building and driveway, that sort of thing. But you guys don't see those because they meet the code, and I'd sign them. But there's two signature lines. There's plating commissioner and planning commission, and it has a date that it was approved by planning commission, and then obviously my signature. But again, if it's not needed, then you guys don't see them. So again, it's not common that you do see those. Wetgo, I required them to consolidate all their parcels. There were 6 or 8 parcels there. Once they did that, then we could move forward. And they just did it this week, actually, finally.
So can you just clarify where the extension, who are we giving the extension, who's it going from and to? Is it going from, is it NDS asking the city, or is it NDS asking Guido's? Yeah, when I first looked at this, I'm like, they were wanting an extension, I thought they were gonna extend the pad.
No, they want to move the property line 12
Let's see how
inches.
they have this written.
And actually, the city wants to move the property line 12 inches so they get out from wall maintenance. And then it's totally Guido's wall, and they have to take care of
I
it.
can't even read so little.
I tried, I even put my new glasses on and it
If
didn't.
Rubik still owned 218, and
No.
Rubik and Guido's wanted to do this, he could just sign it.
Yes,
But
correct,
because
correct.
it's, the city's involved, just to make sure everything's above board and that we as the planning commission have a say in it, he wanted us to review it and give the thumbs up or the thumbs down.
Correct, because it's yes, correct. And according to the legal description, it is in NDS's name. Spian Lands conveyed to NDS and recorded this instrument, da-da-da-da-da, and that's your legal description that you have.
So it's just
So-
NDS looking for an extension.
Yes, so we'll, to clean it up, NDS is going to request this replat and provide it, Guido's the 12 inches of land. And I will make sure that NDS records it with their name on it. So in the future, when the city is asked to accept this, that's already cleaned up and taken care of.
So you're gonna ask them to have their name in the trigger
Exactly.
in Guido's?
Correct,
Good.
I
yes.
was gonna say, as Guido was giving
So,
Any other questions? Any comments?
okay.
All right, we would entertain a motion on this.
So moved
Have a second?
Second.
to authorize the replatting of the two properties to move the boundary line 12 inches.
Deeper than what we're doing, but that'll work. Yes, second.
Yeah.
Right, are we ready to vote? All right, Bill Barber.
Approved.
All right, Carmen Lodato,
yes.
Frank Seaman,
Yes.
Mark Hairston,
Also approved.
and Jonathan Jennings.
Yes.
Thank you. That takes care of all the business tonight.
Well, we do have one
Couple things.
One question, and I guess at how Planning Commission sees this. So last month, the concrete company submitted he submitted his packet, and in his packet, he stated he wanted to put up a 6-foot fence without barbed wire, and all the other things we approved. He then, a couple days after, he calls and said, "Hey, can I put barbed wire fence up?" I'm like, "Well, gosh, you said you weren't going to," and that's what Planning Commission heard. Had he not said that, he would be permitted to put barbed wire on top of his 6-foot fence as long as it leans in. That's the way our fence code was rewritten a couple years ago. How do you guys feel? How does Planning Commission feel about allowing him? He changed his mind. Is he allowed to put up barbed wire fence?
What changed his mind? What changed that he decided he needs barbed wire?
I don't know. He sees, I think because he saw Ravenna Oil with barbed wire around their facility.
And I think he feels he's gonna have a lot of equipment there, a lot of kind of expensive. So I think he's worried about maybe people coming in, maybe this will be more of a deterrent.
Yeah,
and
there's
these will move.
use the fence, the barbed wire fence to deter people from climbing over a 6-foot fence, which wouldn't be too difficult if you're a.
So it's like going on top of the fence? that you need?
Correct, just a standard installation. Again, it has to be aimed in, pointed in. It can't be out or up. That was how we rewrote the code.
So the fence, he has the fence up now, just the regular chain
Mhm.
link, and then he would just put that piece on top. He said, I don't think you can see it, I don't think you can see that's just the sign.
And again, the fence sits
I don't think you can see.
40, 50 feet off the road. It
He
sits a
has
good
not
distance.
installed that yet, has he?
He's installed the fence, but not the barbed wire.
Not the barbed wire,
Correct.
okay.
But he can add
He was waiting, he wanted us to.
he can add the barbed wire to his fence. It's just caps.
I'm not excited about the aesthetic, but he's allowed to do it under the code.
Okay. I didn't know how Planning Commission would feel. I didn't see a reason for him to come in tonight and re-explain. I figured we would just, again, had he not said, "I'm not going to do that," we wouldn't be discussing it. We would have permitted him to do it,
So
so.
then after the fact, if
I've
he
seen it,
thought
I've been
Oh,
past it a few
that's
times.
right, you did.
Okay.
Sorry, okay.
All righty.
No, I'm grateful he just didn't go ahead and do it
Yeah.
without checking back
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
with us.
Okay. That's all that we had, or I had.
So are we gonna say we
Uh,
can do it?
yeah,
then?
mean,
Okay, all right,
I-
and then, did you wanna go over?
Should we do 'em?
Oh, yes, yeah. So there was a request for updates, and
I'm sorry, Mayor, did you wanna take a
Um,
vote?
I was thinking maybe we need to take a vote on that on the.
We can take a
barbed
vote, sure.
wire Fence, if we're gonna adjust that, it should be reflected in the minutes.
Yeah.
So I would entertain a motion at this point.
So moved to allow him to put the barbed wire crown on this fence.
Second.
Alrighty. Mark Kirsten,
Yes.
Frank Simon,
Yes.
Jonathan Jennings,
Yes.
Carmen, Rhoda, and Bill Barker.
Yes.
Okay, that takes care of that.
Okay,
Now,
so there was a request to update chapter 12 of your planning and zoning code. Tiffany had Chelsea pull the last 3 years' updates, and we found a couple. We just provide those to you for your books.
They just need
I
a
don't
copy.
have a book, I never got one,
What?
which is probably why I've sent you so many emails.
I'm not necessarily, but
I'm sorry.
here, you want a book? Take it.
Yeah, I've been meaning to print it out.
You know what, I think
All
Chelsea
right.
said she has a couple, so I'll get you guys some. I'm sorry, I didn't even really.
Does
I didn't-
anybody else not have a book?
It's chapter 12 is what, it was planning and zoning. But there are some things in chapter 14 that pertain to site plan review. Generally, Board of Zoning Appeals would, there's only a couple things in chapter 14 Board of Zoning Appeals has the rights to appeal. One of them is a fence. Signs and fence, I think, are two things in chapter 14, but generally, it's just chapter 12 that you guys deal with. That's why the zoning code is, or your booklets will be just chapter 12.
Well, that
But-
clears up a lot of confusion when I first started, I'm like, oh man, I guess I just have to go fishing online.
Oh, or just send us an email, I'll point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I can usually send you
Codified
the link that you
ordinances
could
are out
go
there.
find
Yeah,
it.
I know, that's what I was doing,
Mayor,
I
would
was
you
like,
like
where are you seeing all
Yes,
this?
please.
updated copy of
Thank
Start in
you.
chapter 12, and then send me an email. I don't see this, where is it?
Is there anything else to come before the board?
So if you see the yellow highlighted spot, those were the sections with the date and ordinance that were updated. And then you see the ones that weren't highlighted, 1991, I think is many of them, that's when that was written. I've noticed over the years, there's a lot of changes from the way we lived in society in 1991 than the way we operate today. But we make changes as we go.
If there is nothing else, we'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Nothing pending for planning.
They're right after us. I think they're right on time.
Go home and sit down.
Yeah?
I might actually go home and sit down. My wife will probably have other ideas.
So you were asking me a question? I forget what you were asking me. What was it?